Hi, this is Russell Stannard from teachertrainingvideos.com. If you are interested in the area of feedback, you're interested in new ways of giving feedback to your students, ways that include the use of technology, then I think you're going to find this really interesting. It can speed up the way that we give feedback to students. It can mean that we can give more feedback to students. Let's get straight into it. This idea really generated a lot of interest and a lot of publicity for me. I won 3 awards kind of related to it. I was lucky enough to be in the newspapers and to write articles and do presentations, and I was even on the telly. When I came up with this idea, there were a few other people working in the area of using screen capture in education, but very, very few. So I'm not going to claim to be the first, because someone else may have made the same suggestion, but I certainly was one of the very first people to even talk about using screen capture in education. Let's now have a look at the idea, and I really hope that you'll see why this has generated so much interest and why it still continues to generate lots of interest. The technology I'm using to record my screen and to record this presentation to you is a technology called screen capture technology. It allows me to record the screen of my own computer and at the same time to add my voice. Now, if you think about it, and I've got one of these technologies here, it's called Snagit. I'm going to click on video. I could use that same technology to give feedback on a student's work. Let's imagine, for example, that this is a piece of work from a student and I've noticed there's a problem here, for example, and then there's a problem here, and perhaps if we scroll down and we say there's also a problem here. Let's just keep it simple like that for now. Imagine that there was just 3 things that we wanted to talk about. In theory, what I could now do is open up screen capture technology and record myself giving feedback to the student. So I could open the screen like that. It's going to initialize, and then I can start recording. I just click on this button here, and after 3 I can start giving feedback. Okay, I just want to give you some feedback on your work. I just want to make a point here. You say that it certainly facilitates the practice. Can you give me a little bit more detail about what you mean here? I don't quite understand this sentence. So can you just kind of explain a little bit more about what you mean by certainly facilitates the practice? Now, if I come down to here, here you're saying fairly high level. What do you mean here by high level? Are we talking about how sophisticated the arguments are? Are we talking about the level of the English? I don't quite understand this point here. Blah, blah, blah. You see that I can do a recording. I click on the stop button and that recording is ready. I can click on the play button. I want to make a point here. You say that it certainly facilitates the practice. Can you give me a little bit more? As you can see, that video is immediately ready, and all I would do now is click on Save As and save the video and then send it to the student. Perhaps I'd put it up onto their Moodle site or into Edmodo, or if not, I could also actually just share that. For example, I could share it on my Google Drive and then send the student a link so that they could listen to their feedback. So basically, I can give video feedback to students. Now, in this example, I was doing individual feedback. Of course, I could do a kind of general feedback to all the students, just make one video. Perhaps I write out some key points, and I'm going to show you an example in a minute. So write out some key points and then just send one video highlighting the key points. So I could write out some key points, record myself talking over it, and then send that video out to the students. So it doesn't have to be only on an individual basis. It can be a group basis. It could be vocabulary. You could have a list of words here where you've got problems with the pronunciation and you just want to simply go through the correct pronunciation of those words. I'm going to quickly now just show you some examples of exactly what I mean. Yeah, I just want to provide you with a little bit of feedback on your essay, and the first thing I want to point out is just we come down to here and I was noticing that you were talking about, I think you're not describing very clearly exactly what screen capture does, and I think it's very important that we explain that if you highlight anything, if you write anything, if you move your cursor on the screen, on the student's written work, then that comes out in the essay, because I don't think you're making that point very clearly here. So I think you might need to rethink that point. Another little point I just want to bring up is here, you use the word live. Now, I think live is not really the right word. I think you're going to need to explain. It's not a live recording because... Okay, just want to go through some of the things from today's presentation. First of all, when you're presenting, try to look at the audience as much as you can. A lot of you were, in fact, you can see the first 2 points together here really, because a lot of you tended to be looking at your notes as you were doing your presentation, and so it's a good idea to try and look at your audience more. And obviously, okay, just want to go through some of the problems with today's lesson and some of the pronunciation problems. First one I want to point out is just the first word, accommodation. Accommodation. The stress is actually on the fourth syllable. And when you spell that word, watch out because it's double C, double M. Accommodation. Next word, corruption. Corruption. Stress is on the second syllable. Corruption. The next. Okay, I hope you like the idea. You can see I've shown you lots of examples now of the way you can use it for giving feedback on vocabulary or on written work or on a blog, or even just one piece of feedback for the whole group. You could use it in all sorts of ways. There's quite a lot of research now around. In fact, in the last few years, there's been a massive research kind of emerging about the use of screen capture technology for giving feedback. This is some of the early stuff. Peter Matteson looked at using the technology across lots of different subjects, and he pointed out that it kind of improved the relationship with the students, because the students felt that the teacher was really making an effort to give them more feedback and support them. And so he talks about the closeness that it created between the students and the teachers. And Steve Mann talks about the fact that a lot of students perceive it as if it's like meeting the teacher. So of course you're not meeting the teacher, you're sending them a video, but it's often perceived as if you were sitting beside the student and giving them the feedback. And obviously that's really positive, because students often like to meet with their teachers to get the feedback. Now, one of the biggest benefits about this idea, and one that I talk about a lot, is the amount of feedback that you can give. So the fact that the feedback is also visual and oral, so you'll be able to work with what we call dual coding, so giving visual feedback as well as the oral information that you can give to the students. There was some work at the Open University. They looked at using Jing, which was actually a technology that I helped to develop. That was a free tool that was on the internet. It's not that good really compared to some of the technologies that are now available, but they said it was a very positive, personalised and motivating experience. Saror in Canada, who also was very interested in the amount of feedback you can give, he talked about the fact that you can play and replay the recordings, and so that the students can listen as many times as they want to their teacher, and that was really important. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on the research, so I'm going to give you a couple of links at the end that you can carry on reading more if you want to get some more information. What I think would be really important now is to show you the technology and then highlight where you could go on the internet or on my website if you decided that you wanted to learn to use this technology so that you could try this idea out. Now, in a minute, I'm going to direct you to some videos on my website that could help you to learn to do this if you decided you wanted to do it. If you were going to look for a free tool, which is obviously a good idea to start with, I would suggest either Screencast-O-Matic, which you can find on the internet, and it's a little bit tricky sometimes because you have to download a plugin, but if you can get through that initial problem, and I've got some videos to help you, then that's a great tool to use. If not, another really good tool is Snagit. Now, Snagit does cost. It's a $30 one-off payment. But you can download and test it for a couple of weeks for free anyway, and in a way actually Screencast-O-Matic is the same. It has a free version which you can use free forever, but then there's also a paid version. But the tool that I use these days, I must admit, is Snagit. I used to be a big fan of Jing, but now I've kind of moved on to using Snagit. Now, there are even more sophisticated tools which I use a lot on my website, for example, for creating my videos, but certainly for feedback you wouldn't need anything that sophisticated. Snagit or Screencast-O-Matic would suffice. Let's have a quick look on my website where there is help on how to use Screencast-O-Matic and Snagit, and I'll also put below this video a couple of articles if you want to read a little bit more about the research. I really hope you found that interesting. I've tried to keep it really short. It's a very interesting area. It's something that I'm currently doing a lot of research, and I've just done, or just in the middle of doing, a whole chapter, about 8,000 word chapter on screen capture and feedback. Thank you very much. So if you want to learn the free tool, I suggest coming onto the website at the top in the tools, free screen capture, click there, and the one that you want to look for is a short course in Screencast-O-Matic. That's a really good tool. It's a free tool. If you deal with the little problem of the plugin, then it's a great tool to use. If not, I would suggest Snagit. And again, if you look, there's an introduction to Snagit Russell recommends. If you would obviously download Snagit from the internet, you would need to go to TechSmith Snagit download. TechSmith Snagit download. Download the software. You can use it for free for about the first 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, and then you would have to pay. If you do decide to buy it, make sure you buy the educational version from their website. Otherwise you'll end up paying something like $50. The education version is about $30. Hope that helps you. Great technology, lots of potential for using this technology in other ways, but one way that we can definitely use it is for feedback.